Hello, hello, good morning. This is some incense. This is really good for helping you protect your etheric body, your auric field, your chakra system, your physical body. It's good for cleansing and clearing. So I'm gonna wave this over everyone and myself. Okay. All right, and here is some protection spray as well. If you would like to accept this, you can say yes in your mind, out loud, or in the chat. This is good for cleansing and clearing as well. Put some on my hands. Okay, so for everyone who is going to be watching this on YouTube later, I post all of my lives on YouTube. And so for anybody watching this, we are going to be talking about past version healing. And I'm going to go a little bit in depth about what the Akashic records are because they go hand in hand. So that is what I'm doing. I'm doing a TikTok live, posting on YouTube. So if anybody has questions as I go along here talking about these things, feel free to write in the comments. And then anybody that's watching this on YouTube, you can write in the comments as well and then I'll answer. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking about past version healing and why that's important and how you can do that. It is a modality that I have created that kind of spawned off of the Akashic Records because it kept on coming back up. And then I got attuned for another set of records that helps me open up that window. So we'll talk about the Akashic Records really quick. So the Akashic Records are a vibrational record of all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and actions across all space, time, and dimensions. And so it's a frequency. And if you believe in soul reincarnation, you are the same soul incarnating over and over and over and over again. Maybe in this human body, maybe it's in a star seed lineage incarnation like Lemurian, Atlantis, Syrian. Maybe you're a tree. Maybe you're a ladybug. Like it's those perspectual lenses. So there's different chapters in your library. So where that's held is in the Pleiadian star system, and the pinnacle are the record keepers. And what the Akashic Records help you do is time is not linear per the records. So everything is happening concurrently. There's no past, there's no future. It's just, it's all of the things. Okay. So if you believe in that and you've worked with your records, when you're accessing your past or you're accessing your future, you're healing the present now, but you're also healing those timelines. And they're all you. So that's where we get into past version healing. So we'll talk about that for a minute. If everybody will give me 1 second. And I'll explain a little more in depth. I know that's very like woo, esoteric, okay? So what I found is that when I'm doing readings for people, something that kept on coming up was past versions of us. Good morning. So there's past versions of us. That is me yesterday. That is me at 5. That's me at 15. That's me at 20, right? It doesn't always have, a lot of times in spirituality, we think that's just the inner child. That's just one aspect of us. There's so many different other times that we've timeline shifted or made big altering timeline shifts, right? Like it's not just childhood. And so what I found was when I was going into people's Akashic Records was that there are pieces of us that splinter off, right? And that's when we have PTSD or really heavy memories, or we experience like very significant trauma. And sometimes we don't have the emotional processing capabilities at that time. We don't have the toolkit, or sometimes we're in a very dangerous situation. And so we just have to bypass our emotions to get through that situation. Like sometimes we don't have time or the wherewithal or the support system, and we're just like, I just need to do what I need to do to get through, right? I'm gonna move my tablet over here. I just need to do what I need to do to get through. And that's okay. That's totally okay. Like sometimes life, you just gotta survive things, right? But what happens is when we don't process through our emotions, because we are energy in motion. Energy like that we hold in our, emotions that we hold in our body that are very stressful, like cortisol, those stress hormones, getting our central nervous system activated, that fight or flight, and like that constrictedness crystallizes in your body and it hardens. Oh, thank you for saying you like my shirt. and good morning. It crystallizes and hardens in your body. And then that's what disease is. A lot of times, like I'm not a doctor, and I'm not saying that that's the root cause of all diseases, but a lot of that has to do with emotions being pent up in our body and not being released. That's where anxiety, that's where depression, those things come from, right? And so when we're younger, past versions, when we weren't able to release those things like anger, sadness, grief, sorrow, hurt, it splinters off, and now that version of us is a consciousness form. And I'll explain a little more in depth. Doctors tell me I have very low cortisol. That cortisol is different than the stress cortisol I'm talking about. But I can talk about that in a little while. Hey Billy. Hey. Oh, let me turn my notifications off. Okay, so pieces of us splinter off and become their own consciousness form. And so those consciousness forms are pushing forward behavioral patterns and triggers into our current reality. That's why sometimes we, with our rational adult mind, say like, I don't understand why I can't get over blank, or why I keep getting triggered. Even though you understand it with like your adult conceptual mind, especially if you're like way further down your spiritual journey, but you're still blocked and stuck, it's because there's pieces of you that are stuck in the past, reliving that time loop over and over and over again. And so I'll give you an example. So we'll talk about finances. That's a big one for people. Sorry about my lip. I was hiking the other day, and it was very sunny and cold all at the same time. I chapped my lip. So, mindset, money. If you have a child that hears money is the root of all evil, right? That child inside of you is pushing forward those projections. So that might look like you in the present now being afraid of success. And you saying, I don't understand why I don't want to be successful. Like, that's a good thing, right? Like, we want to be prosperous and abundant, but for some reason it's just not coming to me. That's because that child inside of you that heard that during that programming time in your life is pushing forward. If you're successful, that means you're evil. That means you're going to a bad place. That means it's going to change you. All your friends are going to leave you because now you're a bad person. And your conceptual mind like knows those things aren't true, like your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind, where that child is in there sitting, they need help. They need to be released from those energetic timestamps. Or like family. This is why family is so triggering. Because if you're a young child and you have parents that are like very domineering over you and not giving you a voice and not making you feel worthy, that child, when you're around your parents or family members that did that to you, your child comes forward in your consciousness. Like, you're still consciously aware, but you're coming from that state of being, and that child is getting triggered. And so those behavioral patterns and those triggers, that is where it's coming from, those unhealed parts of us. And sometimes, you said I'm working part-time on. Okay. So cortisol is like stress hormones, but there's like different, like if you have low cortisol, that's like a different, different thing though. Oh, thank you for saying you like my hair. Thank you. So where was I? Okay, the behavioral patterns and triggers. So everybody knows that sometimes it's easier to take care of somebody else than it is us. And sometimes we're like too intermeshed and intertwined into the situation to look at it objectively and to get out of that cycle that we're in. And so what I found when I was doing people's records was those versions of people were calling me to come get them. So that might be like somebody's 5-year-old calling me and saying, I need help to be released. Or somebody's 15-year-old self. Like wherever you have big trauma moments. And sometimes when you break them off as their own consciousness form, it's easier to heal them. And so what that looks like, finances, I was taught, had to bargain because there wasn't enough. Now I feel that in stress. Yeah. So that's something that you get triggered and then you revert back to childhood. So what can you do to release that? You have to talk to that version of yourself that heard that the first time. So I'll go through what this looks like with somebody in the session. So what we do is I open people's Akashic records, because that's past, present, and future. That's a way to get in there. You don't have to work in your Akashic records, but it does help because you get into like a certain frequency and it's a little bit easier, but you don't have to do that. And so we go into their heart space and their heart chakra, and we say, who needs to come up for healing? And usually that first one that comes up, that's what I call your pillar past version. That's the past version that's going to help you with all the other past versions that come up, like forever. Because once you start this, more start to come up. Because they see that you went in to heal another one, and they're like, ooh, I want to do that too. And then you start having all these other ones pop up, and they're like, let's do that. And then you start to build like an internal family system, and everybody is helping everybody, and you know who's getting triggered inside. So let's just take Jane, okay? So I'm doing a session with Jane, and I am going into her heart space, and we pull up her 10-year-old self that was physically abused, okay? By maybe parents or whomever. We go in and we talk to her, and we say, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on? What can I do to help you heal through this? So instead of you being intermeshed and intertwined and intertangled in that situation, you're coming in as the higher self, as the counselor, as the coach, as the parent, as a friend, as a support, and helping them release those emotions that they were not able to during that time. Like if you have a 10-year-old child that experienced that, they do not have the consciousness or the toolkit or the emotional processing to get through that situation like they need to. And that's not anybody's fault. We're just kids. Or maybe you're a young adult that went through that. You have the consciousness level now that you can go back in and give them the toolkit that you currently have to handle that and help walk them through that. And so when you do that, it releases them from that timestamp. It releases all of that crystalline stress energy that is in your body that is blocking you and your chakras, and it releases it from them, which releases it from you, and now you can move into the higher self version of yourself because you don't have that dense trauma energy inside of you anymore. And then that version, whoever comes up, helps you with all the other versions too. And then everybody starts to do it, and now you have way more energy and room and space inside of your chakra system, inside of your aura, inside of your etheric body. But I hear time and time again, like people that are going to therapy, and that's great. Like therapy is wonderful. I went to school for psychology. Like I'm not downing that, but they're like, we keep on going over this over and over and over again and trying to let go of these things, but I still feel the same. That's because you are going at it from your logical, analytical, adult version self. You cannot talk to a 8-year-old child like that. They do not understand what you're saying. You have to go in and speak to them like you are talking to an 8 or 10-year-old child from that consciousness level so that they can understand. If they hear it from a 40-year-old's perspective, like they just don't get that, right? And so when you said, okay, how do we book with you? I need this. Therapy does not work for me. And like I said, therapy is great. It's just a different type of healing. It's coming from like that mind healing, which is, I love psychology. I blend psychology and I blend energetic healing. They're both needed. If you want to book, there's a link in my bio, and it's under one-on-one healing sessions. And then it'll be past version healing in there in my website. I offer different things too, but that's the name of it, past version healing. And like I said, I'm going to talk about how you can do this too, okay? Because you don't always have to have somebody else to do it. You can do it yourself. Sometimes it's easier though the first time to have a guide to teach you and show you how to do it. And then, like I said, all these other past versions start coming up. This is deep, heavy work too. Like this is like, if you're not ready for this, sometimes you've got like so much going on in your 3D scape, and spirituality will tell you, oh, you got to heal your inner child. Like that's the most important. That's just one aspect of spirituality. sometimes you're not ready to get in there and uproot all that stuff because it's very, very heavy and it's latched in there very deeply. And so sometimes you have to work on what's in your present scape first, and that's totally okay. Like, that is totally okay. You will know when you are ready to go in and do this type of work. Sometimes other people got other stuff going on that other things need to be taken care of first. Right, we just seem not to get through and the same issues arise. You just might need some more energy healing other than like the mindscape portion of it, if that makes sense. Okay, deep dive into my shadow and healing lately. Yeah, this does more like into your chakras and into your Akashic record type of healing. This is you shifting things in your timelines. Like you going back in and healing these past versions, whether it's 15-year-old you, 20-year-old, whomever. When you release them from those energetic timestamps, it shifts you in the here now, but it also shifts where your future timeline is headed. Because now you're coming from a completely different energy space. Like, so much open energy. Okay, and then those versions, like, okay, I'll give you an example. So me, I have a lot of different versions that I've done this with. My pillar past version, the first one that I did it with, was in my 20s. When I incurred like a lot of trauma in this specific time period. And so I talk with her constantly. But then I have other versions of myself. Like, I have 8-year-old me. I have 13-year-old me. I'm still working with her. She doesn't like to talk as much. But when I start to feel triggered right now, I know which one of them is getting triggered, and I can take a pause and take a breath and go in. It doesn't have to be a 45-minute thing. It can be a 5-minute thing. And you just say, hey, little Brittany, what's going on right now? Why are you getting triggered? I know you're scared right now, but I'm here. Like, I'm here to support and guide you, and you have to trust me. And that's another thing. Like, you're building trust with your past versions to let go of that uncomfortability of moving into the new version of you, because sometimes we don't want to move into the new version, the higher self, because we like comfortability and new things are scary. And so a lot of times when you're like, I'm ready to be my higher self, but you still seem like you're getting stuck, it's because your past versions are like, we don't want to do that. We don't know what that looks like. We know what trauma looks like. We know what behavioral patterns look like. We know what negative cycles look like. Sometimes things can be really good for you, but you can be scared to do them because it's new. And so, does everything that happened come back to you? Remember everything? I bury mine so deep. Okay, so with that, sometimes your brain, like, this is the psychology portion of things, like your brain will black out traumatic things that happen to you and memories and even your childhood because it's trying to keep you safe. And so it'll bury those things really deep in there. And so that's way deep in your subconscious. So when you start working with these past versions, that starts to unravel things like the yarn ball. Because now they feel safe to show you what happened. They are the keepers of those memories. And sometimes they're like, I don't want to bring that up. I do not want to go through that again. But they need you to go back in as the higher self version so they feel safe to show you. Does that make sense? And sometimes it's not even negative things. Sometimes you forgot like really happy, cool, fun memories, right? And they show you those. And so it's like a beautiful relationship that you build. And now you have like this whole internal system and you're not alone. Like, you're not alone if you have all of these versions of yourself inside helping one another and supporting one another. Like, now sometimes when I go into guided meditation, there's like 10 of me sitting together. And we're all talking together and giving each other different perspectives and different flavors on like what's going on. Like, I can look at something through my child's eye view and my adult logical brain view, right? Yes, my sister's like, remember this when we were kids? And I'm like, no, I don't. Yeah, because sometimes we just have to block it out. That's what I mean by that bypassing, emotional bypassing, because we just don't have the toolkit or consciousness to deal with that during that time. So we're just like, we're going to put that under the rug. Okay, even good things. It all is together in a big ball. And so how you can do this, I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's under past version healing, and I go like really in depth and walk you through how to do it. Okay, so you can look at it there, but what you can do is like a very simple exercise is to sit in kind of like a quiet meditative state and say, is there any version of myself that wants to come forward for healing? There will usually be one that comes forward. Like 9 times out of 10. Sometimes you have to do it a couple times to like let that past version know you're coming in there, like, let's go. Okay? And whoever comes up, you can just sit with them and say, hey, what can I do to help you on your journey? How are you feeling? Is there some type of activity that we can do together that would be fun for us to connect over? And this is especially important for younger inner children. Inner children don't want to talk about trauma. Trauma is scary. And if you're just now meeting with your inner child, my best suggestion is to say, let's do something fun together. What would be fun for you to do? And maybe they say coloring or go swing on the swing or bubbles. So if you start your connection with your inner children like that, instead of just going straight into the healing, they are more apt to do that work with you. Sometimes your inner children are not ready to come up yet, and you need to go back and do somebody in your 20s or in your teenage years or young adults, and then go back and get the children, because trauma is scary, right? And when you show the other versions of you that you're willing to come in and help them heal from their timestamps, the others start to come up too. That's what I mean, like everybody starts to come up. They come up in their own time though. I don't want you to think like every day somebody new is coming up. They just come up when they're meant to come up. And you can call different ones to go back in with you for other ones. Like I can call my 20-year-old version I work with to go back in to help heal one of my other ones. Like, hey, let's go in together. Okay? Hope not a dumb question. Is it safe to open your chakras? Yeah, of course, yeah. Now, when you open your chakras, and if you have a lot of like trauma built up in there, or things that maybe you've been like sweeping under the rug and be like, oh, I'll take care of that later, it's going to come up. Like it's going to come up. That is what is opening your chakras mean. Whatever is stuck and stagnant in there and has not been looked at, it's going to come up. And you're going to have to look at it. You're going to have to face it. But when you do that, it releases so much out of them. And then you feel so much lighter energetically and like can make more forward movement in your life. So yeah, it's totally safe to do that. It's just, are you ready to do that? Right? And you can always slow it down. You don't have to wide open, bust open your chakras all at once. I always suggest working with your root chakra first. Like even if you spend 2 or 3 weeks just on your root chakra, the root chakra is the foundation. That's where all that deep programming was put in. And like trauma, a lot of trauma is held there, especially your root and sacral chakra. And so I always suggest root chakra first and then work your way up. The more trauma and dense memories and hurt and all of those things that are in your root and your sacral and your solar plexus chakra, the more you clear out in those bottom 3, the more you can access up here. These upper metaphysical, spiritual, woo, fun, talking to different dimensions and entities and spirit guides and all that stuff. You can hear all of that more clearly the more you work on your bottom 3. That's how you open the top. And you do this through meditation. I'm new to this. Oh, okay. So the past version healing. Yeah. So you want to get in a meditative state, ask your past version, which one of you would like to come up. You can envision that you're walking into your heart space, into your heart chakra, like a big green emerald energy, right? And then you go in and then you etherically knock on their door. Like you etherically knock on the door of your heart space. When I say etherically, in your mind space, okay? You ask permission of your past version to come into their landscape. Is it okay if I come in there? You want to ask everything that you're asking out loud. Every single question you have, ask it out loud. Because then you can differentiate between what's you and what's internal and what they're saying to you. So that might be, is it okay if I come inside your landscape? And then I'm listening for an answer. And then once you get in the door, you want to ask them, where can we meet where you feel safe? That can be a lot of different places. I've seen tropical islands that people want to go to, or on the moon, or in their bedroom, like wherever that version of you feels safe. And so you go inside and you find the place, and then I always suggest sitting on the ground, wherever it is, because sitting on the ground is very safe, very secure, like they feel better. Okay, so sitting in a circle with them. Maybe you take some of your spirit guides in with you. Like whoever you want to take in with you, you can take spirit guides, you can take angels, whatever makes you feel good, okay? I fight anxiety really bad and I want to do this, but I'm nervous. Well, that's why I say too, sometimes it's easier if you have, like I do those as healing. Sometimes it's easier if you have a guide showing you how to do it the first time. Especially because it's a lot of trauma stuff. So sometimes that can make you really nervous. So once you're in there and you're sitting on the floor together, you want to ask them, how old are you? And they'll tell you how old they are. And then you say, do you want to go by your name, or do you want to go by a nickname? Because sometimes they have a whole different name that they want to go by because they are a different consciousness form than you. Like me, Brittany, it might be Brit, it might be BP. Those are some of my like nicknames, right? Or Big B, that was like a nickname my grandpa gave me. And so they'll tell you if they want to go by the same name. And so then you ask them, like, how are you feeling? What happened to you? How can I support you? Do you have messages for me? These are the messages that I have for you. And then you have that communication with one another. Sometimes it's a big, long communication. Sometimes they want to give you a hug. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just want you to sit with them. And so after you have your conversation, you want to say, where would you like to meet in the future? So now you're building an anchor point location in your consciousness and to meet them. So when you in your present day start to feel triggered about something like money, like we talked about earlier, like that example, the anchor point location, let's say that little Brittany wants to meet on a beach. And I say, okay, when I start to feel triggered about money, I'm going to meet you on the beach and we're going to talk about what's happening. So like I said, this doesn't have to be like a 45-minute thing. Like if you're on the way to work and you start to freak out about money, you can literally for like 2 seconds go inside and imagine that you're at the beach with your younger version and then say, what's going on? Why are you feeling triggered? I'm here to support you. Let's work this out. Okay? And then you can hear it from her perspective or their perspective or his perspective, right? And then you can counsel, coach them, or parent them, support them, ask them what they need. And when you do that, it relaxes them and it relaxes you. It settles your central nervous system down and you get out of those thought holes in that fight or flight mode, and then you can look at a more objective place. Everybody's more relaxed. Okay? And so this is just one of those versions. You can do this with so many different other parts of you. Okay? And so once you create that location anchor point, you thank them because they're very brave and courageous for coming up. Like that's a huge deal when your past versions come up because they know it's time to let go. And another thing that you can do, especially with kids, is reassure them that when they release those emotions and that trauma, that doesn't mean they're going anywhere. It doesn't mean that they're gone forever. It means they're integrated back into you. They're not splintered off. They're never going anywhere. They're with you for life. And eventually, you will become part of your system. Then you can get into like past lives, like past versions of you from past lives that you bring in to help them heal. And now they're part of your internal system and internal counsel. So theoretically, right, when you pass on, you could be called up to be part of future you's counsel. Okay, so this, like I said, this doesn't just heal you in the present. This heals like past, future, concurrently running timelines. Like maybe you're called right now because you're doing this and healing your past versions. You go heal a different version of you in a parallel universe because now you have the toolkit to heal past versions and they're asking you to be on their council. So it gets real interdimensional, if you believe in like the Akashic records and things like that. So like I said, this is a very deep cellular level type of healing, and sometimes you're ready for it, sometimes you're not. Either one is okay, right? But it will release tons of energy and space in your body and help you move forward in life when you can't get past those behavioral patterns and those triggers and those things where you just feel stuck. It's because you have stuck energy in your body that needs to be released. And what I have found is a great way to do that is past version healing. So like I said, if you want a more step-by-step, this is how to do it. There is a YouTube video that I created. And my YouTube is Soulharmonyhealing, and it's under past version healing. It's like 45 minutes, and I go more in depth of like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. How to do those things. If you need a guide to help you do it and show you how to do it and teach you how to do it, and so you can really embody and feel what that feels like, I offer past version healing sessions. And there's a link in my bio. If you click one-on-one healing sessions, it's in there. Oh, thank you for saying you like my shirt. Thank you. But I offer that too, and sometimes it's easier just to see somebody do it for the first time. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Like I said, you don't have to work in your Akashic records to do this. Like, this is something you could just do very, very directly. But if you research the Akashic records a little bit and start working on yours, it gives you a better sense of what I'm talking about with the interdimensionality of those things, how time is not linear. It gets you into that frequency instead of kind of just looking at your past versions and talking to them in this human 3D only scape. Okay. Well, I am going to, for everybody that's on here live right now, I'm going to reset and I'm going to get back on and do some oracle card readings. If anybody is interested in Akashic record readings, that is more like where we talk about your life from like a bird's eye perspective view, and that gets into like karmic lessons, karmic cycles, like past lives, things like that, that more esoteric soul contracts. I also do those. I do Reiki sessions. I have a YouTube. My friend Ray and I are opening a spiritual gift school. So this is going to be where we are helping people develop their spiritual and psychic abilities, but also work with your subconscious and do the things that I've been talking about for this past like 30 minutes. And so you can subscribe to learn more about the school. We also have a free Facebook group. It's called Journey to Awakening with Brittany and Ray. And we would love for everybody to join. And we are sharing tons of resources that took me and Ray like hundreds and thousands of hours to research on the beginning of our journey. We just went over all the chakras and posted tons of resources about how to start working on them, how to work with your intuition. I'm going to go live in there later at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about some fun things. So will this kind of help with anxiety? Absolutely. Anxiety, a lot of times, if you have anxiety going on in your present day life, anxiety has a root. What is the root of the anxiety? That is, I'm not saying it's all the time, but a lot of the times that's stuff that happened in childhood that caused those behavioral patterns and cycles and anxiety, and so it just keeps layering and layering and layering and layering, like as you get to an adult, because you have those perceptual lenses on. And so you have to go in and deprogram all that stuff in your subconscious, if that makes sense. I need that school. I'm pretty empathic and very open for messages. I know someone who's trying, I just don't know. Okay, I can tell you that with being an empath, let me see what time it is. Okay, perfect. With being an empath, the best thing that I can tell you is working with your chakras and boundary shielding and clearing. Like, if that's all you do for the next year, it will completely change how you function in life. That is something that's the route that I took, and it completely changed my life. And I have a free video. It's like an hour and a half long. There's 2 of them. But the first one is in my bio link. It's called Light Workers Part 1. And I go like super in depth about all of those things. like how to deal with narcissists and gaslighting, and how to take care of your energy body, and why it's important to do boundary shielding and clearing, and how you do those things. And so if you watch that and then join the Facebook group, you can start delving into all your chakras. We have tons of resources on there. Root chakra, most important to start with, okay? I know people are like, I want to work on my third eye. Like, that's great. You can do that. But you're going to get further working on your root chakra first. Can anyone, Akashic Records, if I said that correctly? Yes, anyone can get into anybody can get into their Akashic Records. The thing that I will stipulate, though, is, yeah, or you can be a reader, if that's what you're asking too. Like, anybody can do that, but I will say, for you personally, when you're reading your Akashic Records, your own, a lot of people are like, well, I want to know about past lives. Okay, your guides, the pinnacle, the record keepers, are going to show you what is most important for you in this lifetime right now. So sometimes that's, okay, we need to do a lot of shadow work, or we need to work on our chakras. And then later on, we'll tell you about that stuff, or we'll tell you about your spirit guides. Like, they will only give you as much access as what you need in this moment, right? Even when I read my own, like, sometimes I get, woo, fun, metaphysical, esoteric, like, past version stuff. And then there's sometimes like, girl, you need to clean your house. Okay. Like, you need to get your 3D stuff together. So it is really dependent on where you're at on your journey. Now, as far as reading for other people, is the Facebook link in your bio too? Yes, the Facebook group is in my bio. It's Journey to Awakening with Brittany and Ray. That's interesting. So your spirit team will show up. Yeah, a lot of times your spirit guides will show up. That's who's helping guide you through your Akashic Records too. It's not just like the record keepers. It's your spirit guides coming in and showing you what you need to see. Okay, so, oh, you're welcome. So what was I saying? Records. Oh, for reading for other people. Anybody can be a reader. The thing about that is, okay. So when I started reading for people, I realized that I had been reading for people beforehand, but I didn't know I was doing it, and I wasn't doing it intentionally, because I've always been a healer, and probably everybody in here too is a healer. And so when you start heading towards the Akashic Records, it gives you a bigger toolkit and a grander scope of how to heal people. But when I started reading for people, they were like, oh, you want to be a healer and you want to help people and you want to dig in, then we are going to align you with people that are going through the exact same things you have and stuff that you haven't sifted through. And so I went through a huge shadow work year, like huge. I was mirrored to people that were going through, like I said, or gone through or currently going through. And it was like, we're going to show you everything that you have swept under the rug and have not wanted to deal with. And to me, that was very beneficial, because it was like I was so deep in it, and it was a mirror perspective. And so while I was healing other people, I was healing myself. But I went through some heavy stuff. And so if you want to be a healer with specifically the Akashic Records, from my perspective, this is just me, want to tell you beforehand, it's going to make you go way deep into your own energy healing of self. And you are going to have to be in tip-top shape, not physical shape, but like spiritual, mental, emotional. Like, you got to really take care of yourself. And you need to know what boundary shielding and clearing is. I was not good with boundary shielding and clearing, and so when I was healing people during that time, I was doing double the amount of shadow work I needed to do. I was just internalizing everybody's stuff, which propelled me on my healing journey, but it was very hard on me. It was very hard on my system. And so I tell people, if you want to be an Akashic Record reader, great. But you need to be prepared to do some very deep shadow work on yourself, because all those people are a mirror back to you. And you need to do boundary shielding and clearing, so you're not internalizing their trauma. Like, looking at it objectively and saying, where is that showing up in my life, but not absorbing their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. boundary, shielding, clearing. Like maybe if you want to be an Akashic record reader for like 6 months before that, you do boundary, shielding, and clearing first and learn to get those things down. And that will save you a lot of time and energy as far as like getting way deep down into that shadow land and getting yourself up out of it, okay? Because that's what happened to me, and it was great, and I love it, and it helped me propel really fast, but I was going through it for a year, okay? And that's the advice that I have for being a reader. Okay, everyone, well, I'm gonna get off now, and then I'm gonna reset, and then I'll be back on in like 15 minutes to do oracle card readings, oracle card pulls, like where I read your energy and let you know what your guides have to say for you. So thank you for everybody that joined. This is fun. Like I said, if you have questions, this is gonna be up on YouTube later, and so if you're on YouTube right now, like and subscribe so you know if I have new videos come up, or you can just put questions in the comments and then I'll answer them. Okay, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Bye.